What is up, Rams house? The Rams just came in to Arizona, the place that they just hosted that wild card game last year, and were able to make it just as big of a statement as they did against the Minnesota Vikings last year. They won 45-17 in a game that really, just after a little bit, you just felt like was in complete control by the Los Angeles Rams. And we love to see that here. Like, I love close games, but I also love to see when your team is just clearly better and dominating. I acknowledge the Cardinals have a lot of injuries and they're very banged up. And just in general, even if they're fully healthy, they're definitely the much inferior team. But I did come into this game expecting it to be a little bit closer, a little bit more competitive, just based on the history with Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals. And so it's really cool to be able to see the Rams come out of this game 45-17 win. It just felt like they were dominating in every sense of the word. And really, whatever they wanted to do, especially offensively, seemingly was working here for this Rams team. And just a great response to see after what was a disappointing performance against the Panthers last week, and something that really put the fan base in a panic, which I still don't completely understand why that happened. But hopefully those people that were panicking about the season being over, about us having no more hope, about having to get rid of players, hopefully those people are kind of back on the Rams here and understanding really what type of team this is, because this is the time that you want to get hot as an NFL team. And I think that loss to the Panthers really did light the fire under the Rams again. Not that they got complacent or anything, but I do think that that is a big wake-up call when you win 6 consecutive games. You feel like you can do no wrong. Taking that loss last week really lit a fire under this team, and a 45-17 win is a great way to be able to respond there. I'm just very proud of this Rams team. Let me give some shout outs here before I keep moving on. We got Striker's Corner. What a game so far. First place. That's right. So with the Bears loss to the Packers and the Rams win today, that's right. The Rams are back to that number 1 seed right now. So if we can hold off the teams the rest of the way, it is in our control to keep this 1 seed. And hopefully we can do that there. We also got Rob saying Rams house, number 1 in the NFC again. That's right. We got to hold on to that. Sportsaholic says, let's go. Thank you all who are in the chat. Just let me know your thoughts on this game and everything that you have coming out of this one. For me, just really, again, a great statement to see after the kind of game we saw last week. And the Rams were still in that game and almost won it, even with how poorly they played. Today, while there were still some areas where you'd like to see some improvement, some of it, like on the defensive side, even though they've only let up 17 points, there's definitely some things to clean up there. And you don't have a perfect game and have everything go completely well. So there's definitely things to clean up. But as a large majority, like this Rams team really couldn't do any wrong today. And I'm just going to start off with the offense. It just started very hot. And I felt like this is one of those games where, Stafford has 3 touchdowns to no interceptions. Again, one of those games that we have been used to seeing this season. And really, as far as the yardage goes, he had 281 yards, 22 for 31, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He played very well. But to me, the Rams offense was driven by their run game, and that's really what opened things up today. I mean, a crazy day. So when you look at it on the ground, 12 carries for Blake Corum, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last week was definitely his best game of his career with the Rams against the Panthers, and unfortunately they lost. This week, he does it even better. So 12 for 128, 2 touchdowns. I just feel like his vision has improved a lot. Pass protection has gotten better, and he's clearly the more explosive running back, but clearly this is the kind of guy that you want to pair with a guy in Kyren Williams, who is a good running back in and of himself and is kind of underrated now, which is kind of funny. He was on his ascension. People kind of understood who he was, but now I feel like Kyren's back to underrated again. Having Kyren Williams, who had 13 for 84 and a touchdown, Blake Corum, 12 for 128, 2 touchdowns. It's a huge credit to them and what they were able to do. Again, I understand that this Cardinals defense was banged up, but the Rams really took it to them. And while we want to give all the credit to the running backs here, the offensive line was just clearing holes left and right for this team. And they just did a grade A job against a team in the Arizona Cardinals that still have some good pieces on that defensive front. And Jonathan Gannon is a good head coach there and knows what to draw up there. I was really impressed with them. They had over 200 rush yards, and the offensive line helped pave the way to that. Stafford was not sacked a single time, and there were many times that Stafford was back there throwing the ball, longer developing plays, and he could go through like 3 or 4 different progressions and different reads on that. I think that's a huge credit to the offensive line. And I know that MJD, a guy who works for the Rams, is going to be one of those people that talks about when you run the football, that's going to be something that carries over to the playoffs, and that is what is going to carry you, whether, it's a defensive like kind of slugfest kind of game or whether it's matching points. That's going to wear out a defense and open up the passing game. That's really what we saw happen today. I felt like the Rams didn't need to rely on their passing game, but when they did, it was working. Again, Stafford 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Puka Nacua just going nuclear again, or Pukular, as some people say. He had 7 catches, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns, absolutely mossed a defender over the top. I think that was Will Johnson. And Puka Nacua, this is the kind of thing that we know he can do every single week. The Rams really haven't had to lean into Puka Nacua with the 13 personnel and really all the different answers that they have for defenses. But this game, it felt like, only 7 catches for Puka, but 167, 2 touchdowns. It felt like every time the ball went to him, it was an explosive play downfield. And I love how the Rams kept their foot on the gas pedal there. Even after getting that interception, shout out Nate Landman there. They kept their foot on the gas pedal, went for another touchdown there, Puka Nacua. It's just so fun to watch this team. There's so many answers that they have. And this was definitely a lot more of what we were expecting to see, and that we didn't really see last week that was coming over to translate in this game. Before I move on, I want to acknowledge Descendo. Thank you again for the super chat. You are always dropping great donations. I just appreciate you. I know I sound like a broken record, but seriously, couldn't thank you enough for that. He says, great win. Defense needs to show up next week. # Rams house. Yeah, definitely. We're going to need to show up against the Lions here. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But I want to continue talking about this game, like just an absolute amazing performance by this offense. And I just felt like it was so complete. And the Rams really didn't have to lean into their passing game. And yet Puka Nacua had 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you're still getting guys involved like Colby Parkinson, who's filling in for a Tyler Higbee. And while Devontae Adams only had 4 catches for 29 yards, I still feel like he was making his impact there. And the Rams really didn't need to lean into him. And that's the great thing about this Rams team is they have so many different answers, so many different weapons to get involved. They can beat you in so many different ways. And this is yet another blowout performance that the Rams were able to put up on a team that they should have beaten pretty handedly. But it is division, and you tend to see closer games than that. And they just played really well. As far as the defense, as Descendo was kind of alluding to there, you definitely saw, while they only let up 17 points, you definitely saw some leaky things here and there. Like the cornerback performance, like specifically by Kella Witherspoon, it felt like Michael Wilson was just open all day, and he's been on a heater the last 5 games. He's been playing really well. And so I think it's a combination of him playing well, but I also just felt like our cornerbacks were not playing incredibly well, but like champagne problems at this point with a win like this, like you really got to pick to find things to complain about here. But he definitely would like to see that tightened up. Michael Wilson, 11 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. It just felt like he was opening critical moments. And pass rush didn't quite have the game that I expected them to have against a quarterback that's taken a lot of sacks, but we did get 3 sacks on Brissett. Saw the conductor get in there. We even saw Cam Curl get in there. And so we definitely got back there. We'll see if more pass rush can come as the games go along, because we're going to need that to continue to heat up a little bit more here. And then, yeah, it just felt like the defense, as good as they did, they definitely were a little bit leaky and against better teams that may come back to make it a little bit of a closer game. But again, I think also what comes into the fact there is like the Rams are winning by a lot of points, and especially in the last like 3 or 4 drives of the game, like how much are you really going to be like completely tightening up and trying to stop them when you have a big lead there? So I think there's some truth to that, but I also think there's room for improvement. And obviously it's great to get those improvements in big wins here. So just really impressed with this Rams team. I saw a really cool stat here that they brought up on the broadcast. Obviously the 202 rush yards, no sacks allowed by this Rams offensive line. Just incredible to see this run game peaking. First off, like we had Todd Gurley and we've had Steven Jackson, Marshall Faulk, and Eric Dickerson. We've had like so many great running backs in the past, but that transition from Todd Gurley to getting to where we are now, I'm not saying in any way that Kyren Williams and Blake Corum are Todd Gurley, because Todd Gurley was just like a completely different, like game-changing kind of running back. But we went through a long period where we were just trying to find the running back that we needed. Guys like Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, even we brought back Malcolm Brown at times. And it's really cool to see that the Rams are really beginning to lean into this identity if they want to. And they only ran it 25 times between Kyren and Blake. I think they could have done that more, to be honest. But to have over 200 yards, it feels like the running game is hitting their stride. They're striking that balance well between Kyren and between Blake. So it's just really cool to see. Again, this is the kind of stuff that's going to carry over as we get into the later parts of the schedule and against tougher teams, into colder weather. And it's really cool to be able to see the Rams can lean into their pass game. They can lean into their run game. They have so many answers. And so I just was really impressed by that. But another thing that they brought up on the broadcast, this is a very specific stat, but still I think worth noting. This is the first time since 1954 that the Rams have had 3 rush touchdowns and 3 pass touchdowns on the road. So, I mean, take that for what you will. It's a little bit of a specific stat, but that kind of speaks to the efficiency of this offense and the different ways they're able to beat the Cardinals, who were banged up, but still beat them nonetheless. And I just felt like if you were to give a word for this offense, it was efficient. And if you were to give a phrase for this offense against the Cardinals today, it's they could do no wrong. It felt like whatever they called, whether it was a screen pass, whether it would be a jet sweep, whether it be outside zone, inside zone, a dig route, play action, it felt like one of those games where they could do no wrong on offense. And I was a little bit surprised, despite the fact that the Cardinals are banged up, that the Cardinals weren't really able to give a big challenge to this Rams offense as good as they are. So that was good to see. Again, obviously things to clean up. I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts on this cornerback room here, because we've seen back-to-back weeks where they're kind of struggling a little bit. And while we did win today, it didn't come back to cost us. Witherspoon did not look great. Forbes, I mean, I think he was better than last week, but he wasn't awesome, I would say. And I think one of the two things is going to have to happen if you're going to want to win a Super Bowl is this pass rush is going to have to heat up more for the Rams, or your coverage is going to have to get better. Like one of those two things is going to have to happen. Otherwise, an elite dominant kind of offense could at least keep this game really close with you, make things super stressful. And luckily the Rams have time to be able to do that. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, just because, again, while we won, you did kind of feel a little bit of the weakness there in the cornerback secondary room. But overall, there's not a ton to complain about. Rams won 45-17, just completely dominated this game in their second home stadium. Shout out to the Cardinals hosting us there in the wild card round last year. So those are kind of my loose thoughts on it. Let me get into some of yours here. Carlos says, also there's their D-line cannot get to a QB on the ground. They have been really bad in the secondary. Oh my gosh. This Rams team needs a pass rusher who can close games, and to shut down corners, Forbes has to go. So that's Carlos's kind of thoughts on it. I definitely agree in the sense of like not as aggressively, but like I do agree that there needs to be kind of an uptick in the pass rush, a little bit more urgency. And I hate sounding like that fan who's like privileged after a big win to find like the little things that need to get better. But I mean, when you do play better teams, these things are going to get magnified. So definitely think this pass rush has it in them. We saw it definitely a lot of portions in this season. Last year down the stretch, they were dominant. Hopefully they can get back to that. I don't necessarily think the Rams need 2 shutdown corners. Like I said, I think if one of those things gets answered, whether the coverage gets better or the pass rush gets better and turns it on down the stretch, I think that will kind of solve each other, because it's very much like a uniform thing. If one gets better, the other plays better. If they're both kind of like iffy, it can kind of look bad. So that's Carlos's thoughts there. Descendo says, Nate Landman, man, the man of the lands. Love to see it. We got the land shark. We got the man of the lands, Nate Landman. What an addition. So glad we extended him. Juno Trooper, thanks for coming in. He says, happy for Corum. It might be the first time he outperformed Kyron. I just love, like, I'm not suggesting that this is what you're saying, but, like, I love the combination of these two running backs together. And, like, some people look at it as a competition or, like, as one's kind of trying to compete to get that number one role. I think the Rams are clear in the way they want to use both of these guys, keep both of them fresh, and help them to complement each other, kind of similar to what Detroit does. But what I do think is, while I don't think it's like a competition of who's the number one running back or whoever has the hot hand stays in longer, the Rams very clearly give each other kind of drives to be able to switch off. I think they brought it up on the Between the Horns in the past, where even though, like, you know that, like, as Kyron Williams, you're going to be getting more running back snaps, you're not competing for that number one job. Like, when you're seeing Corum do well, you're going to want to do well yourself. And you're going to kind of want to show the world what you can do too. And it just really benefits the whole team. Competition just raises the standards. And it's really cool to see how they're being able to use as a compliment, because a lot of people are confused by that Blake Corum pick last year and the pick that we used on him and the very little action he got in there. But this year, I think you're really seeing the reason why they brought in Corum. And it wasn't to replace Kyron, but it was to make this really dynamic kind of committee approach between both of them. You can lean into either one of them as a starter, but the Rams like to use them kind of in tandem and in unison to keep each other fresh and be able to wear down a defense. And I just love to be able to see that. Kamal, thank you for coming in. He says, a lot of great play, good win. Akello and Forbes looked a bit rough. Hopefully they tighten up next week. I hope so too, especially for a guy like Akello who was out for a while, and definitely makes sense that he's starting off a little bit rusty, because I don't think he's played this kind of rough as he has like the last couple games, more so this game. when he was just hitting his stride with the Rams. So I think he's kind of getting worked back in here. Well, I don't think he's like an elite all-pro shutdown corner. I do think he's underrated when he's doing well and when he's kind of worked back into it. But I think that the Rams are kind of working him back into it. He's shaking off rust, and at least that's my optimistic approach here. I'm convinced McClendon is our next starting right tackle. He's been incredible. Love the shout out to McClendon here. Every time I see him in there, number 71, Warren McClendon Jr., in place of Rob Havenstein, who's done nothing but great things for this Rams team, I'm always like, I'm pleasantly surprised because he's doing so well that I forget he's in the game. That's what you want to see for an offensive line. And this offensive line is playing like a Super Bowl offensive line right now. The holes that they're able to clear for the running backs, the protection they're giving Stafford, like it all starts up front. And it's really cool to see all these guys working well together. And you wouldn't even be able to tell if Rob Havenstein is out unless you're thinking that the tackle play is better without Rob Havenstein. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it feels like the right tackle play has been better since Havenstein's been out, and I don't want to take shots at him. I know everything he's done for the Rams and what he means, but just looking at it, like, this is a guy who I do see as the future as well. And you kind of hope if the Rams end up giving that contract to McClendon, it doesn't turn out like a note boom situation, which I don't expect, but definitely like the security we have there, because they always say, like, you're only as good as your weakest link on the offensive line. And the fact that our weakest link arguably is either Warren McClendon Jr., who's playing phenomenal, or Coleman Shelton, like, that is exactly the spot you want to be. So Fire says Eric Dickerson was the man. He certainly was. That upright running style, so classic to see, though. Mark says, thank you, Packers. Yeah, we are thanking them for sure. Just to be back in that position to be able to control your own destiny for the playoffs, as far as having that number one seed, getting the first round bye, getting every game at home until the Super Bowl. Hopefully the Rams can hold on to a big game against Detroit next week is definitely gonna be key there for sure. Striker says Forbes still isn't there yet. Also, Witherspoon back-to-back games played horrible. Witherspoon last game only played like 15 snaps, so I wouldn't necessarily say he played horrible last week. This game definitely was very rough for him, though, so hopefully they can get back on track. Juice says, so are the Rams the number one seed again? Yeah, they're the number one seed right now. With the Bears losing, the Rams winning, that puts the Rams back up to the number one seed. But we're going to have to watch out here. We can't really afford to lose any games here down the stretch with how good the NFC conference is. Like, the Seahawks have the exact same record as the Rams right now, and we are on the way to playing them again. We got to play the Lions. We got some tough games, but either way, we do have the number one seed right now and just got to hold them off here. Kello is just rusty, in my opinion. I could definitely see that. I think there's, like, he's struggling, but I also think, like, how much is that due to how much time he's missed? Like, I definitely think there's something real to that for sure. Dickerson is my greatest Rams running back all time. Dickerson, like, yeah, he was insane how good he was, but it also just speaks to the fact, like, how many good running backs that the Rams have had in their history. It's crazy when you go back and really look at the history. It's a very rich and kind of like an embarrassment of riches at the running back position over the years. And I feel like Rams fans have been spoiled, who've been able to watch all these different kinds of guys. And it's cool to see that while we don't have like a generational running back right now with Kyren or Corum, we have a very, very strong duo between the both of them. And this is the best they've looked. The Rams running game has looked since Todd Gurley left. So definitely agree with you. Paul says, yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Paul says, a good game for almost everyone. Definitely. Let's see. Kamal says it's Knuckles and Knuckles. Kind of like that. We got to get a good name for our running back tandem here, because obviously Detroit has the Sonic and Knuckles. But what are your name suggestions here for Corum and Kyren? Because I feel like Thunder and Lightning is kind of stereotypical. Like, everybody kind of comes up with a name like that. I feel like we can find something creative with this running back duo, because Corum really is like more of the Thunder kind of running back in this running back room. Really good vision. It does feel like Kyren. I meant Kyren. I don't know why I keep mixing up their names. Kyren is more of the Thunder. It feels like Corum is more of the Lightning, kind of explosive. We saw that long run for him. I was so excited. When was the last time we saw the Rams have a touchdown run that long? Like, I'm actually curious. I can't even picture the play in my head. I don't remember the year it was when the Rams have had a run that long for a touchdown. It feels like it's been forever, though. Rob says, agreed, coverage still not what it should be. Really missing Lake. Glad offense got rolling, and coach let the boys run. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Lake is definitely a big loss, and somebody that, like, is easy when somebody gets hurt to be able to forget about the impact that they make. But that is actually a good point that you make there, because I think Lake being in that natural position and the versatility he has really allows other people to be able to go out and branch out and play in their comfortable roles. And that should help the Rams defense, not only in run defense, but also in coverage. Lake was definitely having his best year, and the Rams are expecting to get him back for the playoffs. That would be a huge addition to get back to this team, because that definitely, I think you're bringing up a good point, would help their coverage. But yeah, honestly, with what you said at the end of the comment there, definitely think the Rams can even lean into the run game even more. Like, they just have been so efficient lately. Yeah, he does compliment Kyron for sure. Paul says, happy to see Troy Reader break up that pass. Me too, as just seeing the Rams fan base really knock him around over the years and everything that Troy Reader's done bad. Anytime he makes a good play, I'm happy for him for sure. Juice Man says, hit the like. Yep, certainly do that. Thanks, Juice Man, for the reminder. Definitely hit that like button. All it does is help other fans like you who are Rams fans be able to see the stream and check us out. So that would definitely help me out for sure. Paul says, good to see the defense make adjustments and tighten up. Definitely good to see that, because that first drive is only a 5-play drive by the Cardinals. I understand you have scripted drives like every team does in the first 1 or 2 drives of the game. First 15 plays of the game are usually the scripted plays. So you usually see the offense do better than the defense in the first couple drives. But I was definitely a little bit alarmed on that first drive. I was like, man, 5 plays, touchdown for this Cardinals team. Like, it didn't even look hard for them for what they were doing. But the Rams definitely did tighten up. I still think that they were a little bit leaky at times, but again, like, it's champagne problems. Like, you win 45-17. You got to nitpick to find things. I think defense still has their best football in front of them. It does kind of feel like the last couple of weeks they've hit a little bit of a lull where they can get better and correct things. But the good thing is we know that they can do that. We know they have the personnel. We know that they have the coaching too. And really, now's the time to start turning it on for sure. RMS W22 says 249 rushing yards, 39 carries, 3 touchdowns with 3 backs. Yeah, that's just crazy. Just crazy production. If you're able to get that, you should be able to win most games. RMS says Arizona had 14 carries, 51 yards, 0 touchdowns with 3 backs. Yeah, that's insane. The Rams were running extremely efficient, and they have been all year, even going all the way back, taking you all the way back to week 3. I feel like that's really against the Eagles when I was really seeing this Rams game, their run game open up. In fact, if we go back and look at that game, I remember that the Rams were running efficiently in that game, and it felt like they kind of were hitting on something, but they didn't run it enough. And I just feel like over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen the run game turn on, specifically the last 2 weeks for the Rams. But yeah, against the Eagles, Rams ran it 20 times, 94 yards, with Kyron and Blake had 8 carries for 53. So I felt like they were really starting to hit things even all the way back in week 3. But it feels like recently is really when they're hitting their stride in that run game. And again, that's what's going to carry you over into the playoffs and get those big wins. And just you wear out a defense that way. Time of possession, if you can own the time of possession there, that's winning football. And I just love seeing the Rams being able to lean into that run game, because you know that it's not just on their run game to be able to win, where defenses can sell out to try to stop the run and load the box. Because if you do that, then Stafford's going to hurt you. And man, just saying the name Stafford, so cool to see him out there slinging the ball again. What a game he had. But so cool to see Puka Nacua out there doing what he does again. That catch he had against Will Johnson, that 50-50 ball over the top, taking it to go up 38 to 17 at that point, I think it was. What a catch by Puka Nacua. I can't believe we get to have this guy on our team, as well as Devontae Adams, as well as Kyron Williams, as Matthew Stafford, McVay. What a time it is to be a Rams fan. Love seeing Puka play football. And it really does feel like, I know the production, for all the fantasy football people, production for Puka Nacua has dipped, so to speak, but it's because they haven't needed him and they haven't needed to lean into him. This felt like one of those games like rookie year Puka Nacua, or even earlier on in the season, where they were really leaning into him, but it didn't feel like they were leaning hard. This is the only way they can move the ball. But it feels like Puka can have a performance like this, 7 catches, 170 yards, a couple touchdowns, whatever. It feels like he can have one of these games at any given moment if the Rams need him to. And what a great weapon to have in your back pocket, so to speak, with all the different weapons that you have for sure. They didn't have a passing game in Dickerson's time. Imagine if Eric Dickerson played in this era of football, all the problems it would cause. Let's just say you put him in on this Rams team. That would be insane to see what he could do with an elite Hall of Fame, obviously future Hall of Fame head coach and Hall of Fame quarterback, all the different weapons and things. If you put an Eric Dickerson on this roster, even Todd Gurley, I love the running backs that we have right now, but just imagine for a second what this offense would look like. That'd be crazy. So Fire says Rams 44, Lions 20. Honestly, I don't really have a score prediction for this game yet. I wouldn't be entirely surprised because I haven't been the most impressed with the Lions this year. There've definitely been a lot of banged up players on the team for them. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that Rams Lions game next week at SoFi just because like we've come up so close so many times against this team in the playoffs. Obviously, is the biggest one, and we know what the fan like a lot of the fan base has been talking trash about the Rams and Stafford, and definitely feels like it's time for the Rams to get a big win there against the Detroit Lions next week. So it would be cool to see if they did it in that fashion, though, for sure. Paul says, glad to see Stafford. No picks again. Good point there. Yeah, so he had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions today. So that puts him, off the top of my head, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year. And it's more than just the numbers, the box score numbers that everybody looks at. I know it's tempting to, but if you're a Rams fan or an NFL fan and get to watch every one of these games, you'll just see how much Stafford is outclassing the other team, whether it's making those sidearm throws, whether it's making the no looks, whether it's just delivering seeds like he did to Colby Parkinson in the back of the end zone with like 2 or 3 guys around him, fitting it in there. Whether it's the intel and the collaboration between him and McVay, they've talked about all the experiences they've been able to draw on and collaborate to make this kind of offense. And even understanding a defense, what they're in, and being able to identify that, know where to put the football. Or if you wanted to, know that the look is not favorable, but move a guy with his eyes and throw it back around to the other side where the guy just was. Like Matthew Stafford is, to me, a clear-cut MVP. I know everybody talks about Drake May, and Drake May is playing incredible, and people compare the supporting stats between Drake May and Matthew Stafford, and how Matthew Stafford has more weapons and anybody can throw to these kinds of weapons. But seriously, like Stafford is playing at his peak, his best football when he's 37 years old with the Rams. This is, let's see, 2021 is his first year with the Rams. So if you count that, 22, 23, 24. So this is year number 5 for Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And yet this is him playing his best football right now. And it's like, really, he could play for a lot longer if he wanted to. So just glad to see Stafford in here. I still think he's a clear-cut MVP. We obviously have weeks left. Things can change, but where it is right now, that's what I would put my money on, honestly. Kamal says Stafford looked lights out, crazy catches and passes all day. Only one throw that could have gone the other way. That's my QB. Yeah, it's so cool to see the people that were able to still ride with Stafford after the performance he had last week. I know a lot of people jumped off of Stafford, as crazy as that sounds, after that weird game that he had. I just like, it's crazy to me how people can do that after a large sample size they put up and have one kind of weird game against the Panthers and still almost win it. Like, you were seeing a lot of people jump off the Stafford bandwagon, and I'm just glad to see that he was able to prove people wrong again, have another great performance. And this is really what he's been playing like the majority of the season. And you're right with that one throw. It was a near pick six there. I think it was Will Johnson when he tried to throw that curl route. Definitely a close call there. But I think, to me, looking at this team, it's obviously easy for me to say as a Rams fan, but like, this does feel like the clear-cut best team in the NFL right now. I think the Seahawks are right there below them. But like, you have to be excited as long as health prevails here for what the Rams can do, what the kind of run they can make. If they can get the number 1 seed, that would be incredible, because we know all the great things that McVay has done with the Rams since he walked in the building, literally the first day, the impact he made. And he's accomplished a lot with this franchise, and we can't take that for granted. But one thing he's never done is get that number 1 seed. And to get the number 1 seed, get the first round bye with the amount of veterans that you have, the early bye week that you did have, and on top of that, only having to play 2 games to get to the Super Bowl, and knowing those 2 games are at SoFi Stadium with a home crowd that is only getting better and better, stronger and stronger, which doesn't get talked about enough, with a team that is really beginning to hit their stride, it appears, only had a bump in the road last week, but are back on track here. Like, that is what you're hoping for. I have full confidence that this Rams team could go into any environment and win a game. Obviously, rough elements like rain or snow gets me worried, but I still think they can get it done, whether they lean on the run game or not. I think they can still get it done. But if they can go and get the number 1 seed and they can host these playoff games, be at their home stadium with the home crowd behind them, with the momentum rolling, as laser focused as they could after that tough Eagles loss last year and the tough loss to the Lions the year before that, like, this team is so dangerous. And I think the rest of the NFL has to watch out not to let these guys get the 1 seed, because they are already as dangerous as it is even on the road. But at home, with that crowd behind them, with the momentum that they have to get the week off, I'm one of those guys that, like, you're talking about rest versus rust, and I talked about this with co-host Peo Time on the First Down Rams, we were talking about rest versus rust in that whole kind of conversation, and we came to agreement that like that applies more so if you don't want to have a rested bye week kind of thing. I think that applies more so for younger teams, teams that maybe are on a momentum that they need to continue to roll on, and that's kind of what's driving them. But for a team that is packed with veterans, that has had coaches and players go down on a Super Bowl run and into the playoffs the last couple of years, I think that you would take that first round bye all day, and I would not be worried about rust one bit. I look at it as extra preparation that they have, obviously for film and different things they can draw up, but also key rest for guys like Devontae, who is still working through a hamstring right now and has been playing through that for a while. For Stafford, who is likely dealing with something, despite the minimal times he's been hit this year, he's likely dealing with something just because every year he is. I think getting that first round bye would be huge to get that rest, not to get the rest, but to get the rest and just to be able to have that time to prepare and to play at home. As I mentioned, I think the Rams can do it without the first round bye, number one seed and all that, but definitely that would just be like a dream ideal scenario, especially you don't want a team like Seattle to get the one seed and to have to go up to Lumen Field with their crowd behind them again with a team that's playing really, really good football. Like, I don't want to set that up. I don't want to set it up where we go to cold weather like Chicago or anything like that. Hopefully the Rams can hold on and get that one seed for sure. Striker's Corner says, I picked 36-13 Rams over Arizona. You were not too far off there. 45-17 was the final, so you were pretty close there. I myself picked 23-17. I definitely thought it'd be closer. I thought the Cardinals would play a lot more competitive, but I was very happy to be wrong about that. Let's just say that. Paul says, Rams fan for life. Same here. Been a Rams fan since being born in St. Louis. So definitely not going to get off of them from there. I wish I still had some St. Louis merch that fit me because most of my St. Louis merch that I had was when I was a kid, and obviously none of that would fit now. But there's some great throwback merch in there that I kind of want to get some of that old St. Louis stuff there, throw in with the Los Angeles stuff, because I think people assume when they come in to these streams that I just jumped on the Rams when McVay got here, but like I've been here my whole life on this team, so definitely a blessing to be where we're at right now with the coaches and the players that we have, and just such a golden era for the Rams. Really, only one bad year that you can point to under Sean McVay since 2017. That was 2022 with all the injuries they dealt with. I'm signing up for that every time. If you can have like 9 out of the 10 years, or actually that'd probably be like 8 out of the 9 years, be really good Rams teams above 500, making the playoffs, making it to 2 Super Bowls. Like, I'm signing up for that every day. Striker's Corner says, what an amazing day for the Rams fans, especially after that loss to the Panthers. Like, again, there were so many people that were like saying the sky is falling, get rid of this person, fire that person. And I'm like, hold on. Like, we just rattled off 6 consecutive wins, playing really good football. The amount of blowouts that the Rams have had, you look at the years past in the Rams teams, as good as they were 2024 and 2023, when they were kind of rebuilding on the fly and bringing in new guys like Puka and like Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and all that. They, as good as they were, most of the games that they were winning were closer games. At max, they were probably winning by 10 points, but most times it was in that 7 to 8 range win for the Rams. But this year, just looking at the schedule, the Rams have had so many different blowouts, and us Rams fans have been treated to that. And I think that's really cool to see the identity. While there's still a lot of the players that we've had in years past, this team is becoming dominant. I mean, you have the 45-7 win or 17 win over the Cardinals this week. You had the 34-7 win over the Bucks. You had 42-26 over the 49ers, 34-10 over the Saints, 35-7 over the Jaguars, and you had that 17-3 win over the Ravens. That feels like forever ago, but it feels like something that the Rams weren't doing a lot in the past, we're being treated to now, and it's so fun to be able to see this team begin to step into their true potential. And I still don't necessarily think, even with all these blowout wins that we've had, we've seen them play their absolute best brand, where defense is on fire, offense is on fire, special teams is playing well. And if that happens, like, do the Rams get to 60 points? I don't even know, but it's so exciting because you know that there's more down the line for this Rams team, and really cool to see. Although we were winning those games in years past as the Rams and kind of digging out of the holes that we were when we were under 500, really trying to just get back to 500, reestablish things. Now we're at a point where the Rams are dominating teams, blowing them out. And you still have those close games, and we're probably going to have a close one next week against Detroit. But it's really cool to see these players step into their own, have that experience, really begin to pay off, and now be able to have these big kind of wins. And it's becoming a bit of a regularity for the Rams to have blowout wins. So I'm definitely down for that. Paul says, "Yep, so happy till next week. Nervous time." Well, thanks for coming in, Paul. I appreciate you for all the comments that you put in. I'm excited for next week. I'm sure this is going to be a big week of anticipation for us as Rams fans. It's going to be hard to wait to next Sunday for sure because we got Jared Goff and the Lions coming back to SoFi Stadium, and man, I just hope we hear those Matthew Stafford chants in the stadiums instead of Jared Goff or like MVP chants. Like that would be so cool. Kamal says, "Stack good days and ride this high into next week." Definitely. And again, I think that was definitely a big wake up call for the Rams. Losing the Panthers really lit a fire under them. And now it feels like, to me, it feels like they're on a way to roll into the playoffs, getting win after win. And you're going to play tough teams. Like the Lions could, in theory, beat you. I still feel confident about that game. The Seahawks game is the one I've like circled. It's going to be 2 games from now, Thursday Night Football in Seattle. The Seahawks are playing as good of football as the Rams are, even on some weeks a little bit better at times. Obviously, the Rams match up really well against like Sam Darnold and that Seahawks team, but like I can't just brush past and say that I'm not worried about the Seahawks. That game is going to be huge, but if you can get past them, like I really feel like this team has a chance to win out and get that 1 seed. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping for. Obviously, let's see. So right, yeah. Paul says, announcers marveled how nice the spin was on Stafford's throw. I'm glad that they're just like one of us, because for me, I marvel at that all the time. I'm like, man, how's he get a spiral that tight? Like anytime I'm throwing the football around, it feels like my spirals are like every 2 or 3 throws, maybe I'll get a good spiral, if that. But his crazy spirals, right location, he can do it no look, and I can't even do it looking at the person as good as Stafford. So definitely love to see that for sure. Pale Time says, "Hey Rams house, Rams might be a good team." Yeah, I see what you did there with all the people panicking about this team going down in the dumps and kind of being done and over with. That I'm definitely. I mean, I'd be curious to look back at some of those comments and bring it up to people and be like, are you still panicking about this team? Because I mean, clearly what they showed today looks pretty good. But thanks for coming in, Pale Time, for that comment. Paying West YouTube, thanks for coming in. He says Corum cooked today. Definitely his best game as a Ram. And I said that last week after the Panthers game, but the performance he put up, the numbers reflected it. It felt like every carry was a quality carry, not only for him, but for Kyron Williams. And again, I'm really curious. I want to look this up after the stream is done. But if any of you guys know it, like when was the last time the Rams have had a run for a touchdown from that far out? Like I'm pretty close to guarantee sure that Kyron Williams has not had a touchdown run that long. So before that, would have been Cam Akers that has had a run that was that long for a touchdown. Like as a running back for the Rams, getting that long of a touchdown, like it just feels like it's been a while. And I love to see that it was Blake Corum that was able to do it for us. And it just feels like the Rams run really well against the Cardinals, no matter what year it is. Kyron kind of broke out against the Cardinals there when he was kind of coming up. In this game, they were really able to establish themselves again. So really cool to see that for sure. Striker's Corner says, "I'm going to the Seattle Rams game and I'm moving to LA next season. Season ticket holder right here." Oh, dude, I'm so excited for you. That's going to be so fun. That environment in Seattle, as much as they're a divisional rival and a team that we don't like, I have to respect their stadium. Like it's a cool stadium and they have a legit home field advantage. So definitely make noise for us Rams fans out there. I know that you live in Seattle right now, but moving to LA, I'm sure that's going to be a dream for you to be a season ticket holder. Like, oh, I couldn't be more stoked for you there, man. Kamal says, "It almost felt like McVay was running up the score. Loved the aggressiveness late into the game." Yeah, I agree. I feel like it was a good aggressiveness balanced with being smart, as McVay likes to talk about when it comes to like injuries and things like that. I feel like he was running up the scoreboard, staying aggressive, and the biggest example of that was after the Nate Landman interception. I feel like maybe in the past we would see the Rams just try to run the ball, be okay with getting a field goal if they wanted to. But no, right after that interception, they went to the double move, Puka Nacua. The rest was history. Just throw it up to Puka Nacua. He's coming down with it, whether it's with one hand or whether it's 2 hands over the head of a defender. And I did love to see that aggressiveness too and carried through with it. But then I loved how the Rams were able to play that situation smart when there's about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game. Take Stafford out of the game. Don't even risk it. I understand Stafford's a tough guy, but you saw what happened to Daniel Jones, the non-contact Achilles injury. You've seen crazy injuries in the past that, like, even if Stafford wanted to, I mean, he could probably play with a broken leg, just seeing the things he's been able to do in the past, but you don't want to risk that. So I loved how they were able to balance that aggressiveness there, just running up the scoreboard a little bit, continuing to do things well. stay competitive, try to get a score every time. But then when it was time to pull back there, I was fine with them taking Stafford out and a large majority of the starters there so that they wouldn't have any chance of getting hurt, especially when you got a good team in the Lions up next. Striker's Corner says, I'll be wearing a white Eric Dickerson jersey and an LA Rams hat, hoping to make TV. Hey, I mean, if I were in charge of the TV cameras there, I would show you on the screen an Eric Dickerson jersey. That's worth showing there. Rams hat. Hopefully we can get some good Rams fans there in that Seattle game. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be probably like 98% Seahawks fans with just how good they've looked this year. But definitely glad that you're going to be representing them there. Hopefully we see you there. So far, says Trey Mason took 198 yards. So, yeah, that's a shout. By the way, shout out name Trey Mason there back in those St. Louis years. That's a classic. But I'm talking about like since Todd Gurley, when was the last time we had a 40-plus yard touchdown run like Corum had today? Like that's what I'm genuinely curious about. And I really want to do research to be able to find this just because like it does feel like it's been since Todd Gurley that that's happened for the Rams. And I mean, maybe Cam Akers had a 40-yard touchdown run, maybe not. But other than that, I think it would have been Todd Gurley that had the last one. Or maybe even CJ Anderson. Who knows? Peng says, facts, bro. We haven't had a long running touchdown in a minute. So it was dope to see it happen in this game. I was too. And like, I think as us as Rams fans, we obviously love Corum. We love Kyron Williams. But it does feel like anytime there's a chance to have that huge explosive run, even that one that the Kyron Williams had against Seattle just a few weeks ago, where it was a fourth down, they ran outside zone, he cut up the field. He was literally 1 yard short of scoring that touchdown. And so that was kind of what I was expecting when I saw Corum make that corner and be able to go up the field. I was like, oh man, I feel like he's going to get caught. Like we're used to seeing that. And then he rounded the corner, was untouched, went into the end zone, and so cool to see. I'm happy for him for sure. Peng West, YouTube says miss seeing big explosive runs like that. Something Jonathan Taylor or Barkley and Gibbs would be doing in games. Definitely miss that. Like I do love to see the kind of running style that the Rams have with this team. Like it's very unique, and I feel like they have just really good vision, good contact balance, and it's guys that you root for. Obviously, Kyron was a 5th rounder, Corum was the 3rd rounder, so you really root for guys like that. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor, Barkley, Gibbs, even we've talked about him a lot this stream, but like having like Todd Gurley, that was such a fun experience because it felt like anytime he touched the ball, it legitimately could be a touchdown. And I'm just like getting flashbacks to when Todd Gurley took that screen against the Titans. I think it was 2017 season. It was like 70 or 80 yards in that season that he could have gotten MVP. That long run against the Niners that he had, Todd Gurley, big one against the Seahawks. Like there were so many big moments, and those players are so fun to watch and explosive. But I'm glad that like even though we don't have a Todd Gurley right now or an Eric Dickerson or Steven Jackson or something like that, like our running backs are very good. And I think a lot of the times Rams fans can kind of underrate them just because of the rich history of running backs that we've had. And you look at guys like you talked about, Jonathan Taylor, Barkley, or Gibbs, and you kind of want that. But like as much as you want that, you also are like, man, like we got good running backs here in LA. I'm glad we don't have like a Darrell Henderson anymore or Cam Akers, where it's like those guys are good backs, but compared to Corum and Kyron, we definitely upgraded there for sure. Paul says, yeah, I miss Todd Gurley. If any of you are in here and you can think of a Todd Gurley moment that was your favorite, definitely let me know in the chat down there. I'd be curious because, yeah, I think about that long one against the Titans in 2017 that he had. I mean, there's so many plays. I loved that one against the Redskins at the time in his week 2 of 2017, McVay's second career game, and Gurley just hurtled over the guy and scored the touchdown, like reached over the pylon. That was a fun one. Yeah, that long one against the Niners back when they were in the St. Louis Dome. That one was fun. Like there were a lot of Todd Gurley moments, but if you guys can think of any of your favorites, definitely let me know. Grandizer question, whose house? It's always a legit question. Well, obviously we were playing in Arizona today, not at SoFi, but it is the Rams' second home after all, after having a playoff game there. And I mean, little fun fact, the Rams have hosted a playoff game at State Farm Stadium more recently than the Cardinals have. So, it just depends on which house you're talking about. Are you talking about Rams house, SoFi Stadium, or State Farm Stadium? That's kind of the real question there. But thanks for coming in, Grandizer. Kamal says, Kyron and Blake have been on the verge of breaking big runs all year. They were due. It definitely feels like that. And it feels like Kyron, even over the last couple of years, has been on the verge of breaking one. And he gets like one tackle away from scoring a touchdown. It's the classic. He comes up, jumping up and down, like doing this thing to the screen. It does feel like they've been on the verge all year, especially Corum. Do you guys remember that run against the Jets last year that Corum had? That was a huge explosive. I think it was another kind of outside zone thing, and he cut it all the way back across. It was probably like a 40, 50-yard run, but it got called back because of a holding call that really didn't affect the play there. So to your point, they've definitely been on the verge of breaking a big run. Love to see Blake Corum do that. And I honestly would not be surprised if we see another one of those before the season is over for the Rams, maybe even a couple from Corum. Striker's Corner says Kyren Williams achieved his career long of 31 yards in 2023. I think he must have broken that against the Seahawks, didn't he? I'm very curious about that because Kyren had that really long run on fourth down against the Seahawks that I just talked about just a few weeks back. I don't know off the top of my head how long that was, but in my head, I'm picturing they were probably on the Seahawks 40, 45, somewhere around there, and he took it down to like the 1. So I think he beat that since then, but I could be wrong. Got to get ready for that 1-2 punch Detroit running game. That is definitely going to be key number one to stopping this Detroit offense. Like that is massive for this game because we saw what the Panthers did. While they didn't have any explosive runs against the Rams, they were able to consistently get 4 to 5 yards every single carry. And that wears down your defense, that sets up the play action. And it's just asserting dominance over the other team. And the Rams have definitely been a little bit leaky against the run. And I think a lot of us are probably thinking about that Carolina game. But on the year, I mean, they've played the run really well. They've played guys like Saquon. They've played guys like Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker. I know that there's another one in there. So, like, we've seen evidence that they can stop the run well. I think Poona Ford is a huge key to that run defense. But you absolutely cannot let these guys – like, if you let Gibbs and David Montgomery get, let's say, like 150 rushing yards, like, even that, like, you're kind of pushing it there. And at that point, you'd hope that the Rams just put up more points than them. So – Payne West YouTube says Chiefs versus Rams game in the call season. What a game. That one is one of those games that I was thankful for to be able to experience in my lifetime. It's one of those that you're going to tell your kids when you're older. And if you have kids, you already have told your kids about that game. Like there's so many cool storylines behind that. Fun fact, in that week, obviously the story's been known. The Rams were supposed to play in Mexico, but the Shakira concert ripped up the field there. So the Rams couldn't play there and they moved it back to the Coliseum. But in all of that kind of translation, the Rams actually came to where I live right now in Colorado, and they practiced at the Air Force Stadium, which was so cool to just know like the Rams were in Colorado, like my home state, practicing to play that Rams-Chiefs game. That was one of the most historic games ever. Best Monday Night Football game in history, and I think that was the third highest scoring game in NFL history, not just Monday Night Football history. So that was just like the peak LA Rams. And I feel like when you think about that game, you always think about like the offense because like Rams put up 54 points, but the defense got 2 scores in that game, and the defense made plays. I mean, there's 2 interceptions that come to my mind. Aaron Donald with the strip sack. You had the Ebukam. That's the 3rd interception that I can think of now. Ebukam had that pick 6. Like there were a lot of great defensive plays in that game too. And the funny thing is, Todd Gurley really didn't have a great game in that game. I don't even think he was over 40 yards rushing in that game, but the passing game was on point, and the Rams defense made enough plays to win that game. That was just a classic. Rams game ball segment. That's a good call out. I think I may have actually forgotten to talk about my game balls here. I always have a lot of them, so I'm just going to give 2 here to like the biggest standouts and then shout out some other ones that I can think of too. A big one for me is Blake Corum and Kyren Williams. Like I'm just going to put them in a pair because they went over 200 rush yards. We're really able to set things up for this passing game and really just wore out the defense of the Cardinals altogether. And to put up over 200 yards, like I have to shout out Corum and Kyren. Like they really carried the day there. But I also want to give a game ball to Puka Nacua. Like 167 yards, 7 catches for a touchdown, 2 touchdowns actually. He had that one right before half too. And Puka Nacua, like I talked about before, like people were getting nervous about the drop of production that Puka had, but really, I don't think the Rams have had to really lean into him, and they didn't really have to this game, but it did feel like one of those classic Puka games where the classic old school Puka games where Cooper Kupp is out with an injury, Puka Nacua is the best receiver, and the offense just went through him. But it felt like every catch he had was an explosive. So Puka, Corum, and Kyren get my game balls, but I think you got to give one to Stafford, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I would give one to the offensive line. This is why I don't do game balls. Like if I was a head coach, I wouldn't have enough because there were so many players that played well. I want to give it to a bunch of guys. But if I were to give it to three, I would say Corum, Puka. I want to give it to Stafford, but I really want to shout out the offensive line. So I'd give one to the offensive line and maybe Warren McClendon specifically because he had to go up against Josh Sweat a lot. It's cool to see Nate Landman to get that interception too as well. That was really awesome to see there. Rams house. Your Rams players stock up and stock down. Let's say stock up to Blake Corum. Once again, just continue to go up for him. He's just getting better and better. That's one of my favorite things with Corum. It feels like he doesn't really regress from week to week. It just feels like it's a continue like constant ascension with more opportunities that he gets. So definitely put him up. Stock down, I would go Witherspoon there. Just had a really rough day. Michael Wilson had, I don't even remember the number at this point. I would have to go back and check, but he definitely had over 130 receiving yards, had a couple touchdowns there. You could throw Emmanuel Forbes into stock down there, but definitely would put Witherspoon in that one. He's still working back from injury. I would say stock down. I kind of want to put Byron Young or Jared Verse in there slightly because I understand sacks aren't everything. And a lot of people just look at sacks and think that Jared Verse is falling off or Byron Young's falling off. And that's just not the case. I understand they're impacting plays and they really are. And even if they don't get the sack, they can be setting the table. But definitely thought we'd feel a little bit more from Verse or Young. And it didn't feel like you felt their presence a ton this game. I still love having them on my roster and wouldn't get rid of them. But if you had to pick some stock down players, I definitely expected a little bit of a better game from them there, just because like Brissett's been sacked a lot this year and longer developing pass plays really sets the table for that. But yeah, I'd put those two guys in there. Another stock up, Warren McClendon, filling out right tackle for Rob Havenstein. He's just playing so well right now. And again, I don't think I'm the only person that forgets Warren McClendon's in the game with how well he's doing. You forget how he's in there. He feels like he's playing like at an all-pro level. So definitely put right tackle Warren McClendon in there. I'd probably put Xavier Smith in there as well, just because he's continuing to get more opportunities on offense with the Rams, and you saw early on getting in there. Just the story that he has is crazy. The fact that he was a UPS driver, and then his mom had to convince him to get back into football, I think at like the JUCO level, and he's worked his way up from being a practice squad guy to a returner to now he's getting legit reps on offense. So I'd put him in there as well. But definitely let me know yours down below. Anybody who wants to do the stock up and stock down here. So far, it says most rushing yards in a season, Eric Dickerson, 2,105. Most receiving yards by a running back all time. That's got to be Marshall Faulk, and it is 6,875. Wow, that's a lot of receiving yards. Most broken tackles in a season, Steven Jackson, 174. That just speaks to the pedigree, like just the history that the Rams have had at this running back position. We have been absolutely blessed. And you have to think that Todd Gurley's name would have been thrown in there if he was able to play longer, because I believe right now, I think Todd Gurley is still leading over like the last 10 years in touchdowns scored for a team. Like he's still up there right now, and he hasn't played since 2020. So like that's just insane. If you think about if Todd Gurley was able to stay healthy, like I think he would be thrown in there with these kinds of names. Todd Gurley had that big screen pass TD in that wild Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs. It's weird. I don't remember that play in particular. I mean, if he did, like, honestly, there were so many points that was scored there, but it felt like Todd Gurley didn't do a ton in that game, and obviously the Rams didn't need him. They still won 54-51, but I don't remember that happening. I'm actually curious. I want to look this up. Rams versus Chiefs in 2020, or this was 2018, not 2021, because I don't remember Todd Gurley having a score in this game. But so yeah, he had 12 carries for 55 yards. Todd Gurley did against the Chiefs in 2018. Receiving, he had 3 catches, 39 yards, no touchdowns. So he did have 3 catches for 39 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown in that game, and yet they were still able to put up 54 points. That's crazy. I will say it again, Jared Verse, his numbers are way down from his rookie year. He's looking like a bust. I definitely wouldn't say he's a bust by any means. I wouldn't even come close to saying that, but I do think it's worth like talking about and mentioning. He was definitely on a much better pace last year, and he's definitely getting a lot more attention from offensive lines than he did last year. But it feels like there's another gear he can click it into, and you still feel those weeks when he doesn't get a sack where he's pressuring quarterbacks and really disrupting things. I wouldn't really say I felt that this game from Verse, but you'd have to go back and watch every play again and really look at things from that lens. But I definitely think his production has dipped from last year, but I wouldn't put him in a bust category. They have training camp in Arizona, not far from here. Oh, really? What was the tight end's name in that Chiefs game? Everett? Yeah, Gerald Everett. He had that big clutch touchdown from Jared Goff. I think it was like a 9 route that he had down there. That was a big one for sure. I really like Gerald Everett, what he's able to do with the Rams. Like, it was cool to see as a tight end. Like, the first guy would be able to bring him down. Like, it was always a missed tackle he's able to force, whether it be by trucking somebody off or making a miss to like a juke. But Gerald Everett, obviously, he wasn't a complete tight end, and he did drop the football a good amount, but I did like what he's able to do after the catch. Puka and Blake getting game balls, and Nate Landman. Definitely respect that for sure. Blake up and Forbes down. Verse down is what Striker's Corner said. Yeah, you could definitely argue that for sure. I do coffee. Yes, says Forbes for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Verse Michael Sam's. I don't know if I would compare to Michael Sam, honestly, but that's just me. And I think it's too early to make that comparison, but I definitely think that Jared Verse still has a lot of good football left. He's shown it. I just think with the kind of mentality he has and how aggressive he is and all of that, I wouldn't compare him in that way, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what ends up happening. Havenstein might have lost his job. He's done a lot for us. He definitely has. And he's done a lot for us for sure. But I think we've seen in the past this Rams team is not afraid to be able to go to the cheaper option, the option that doesn't have the big contract, the younger player, the player. Even, again, you look back to Cooper Kupp last year, everything he did for the Rams, the big contract that he had, they were still able to move on. And they didn't mind moving on. And Todd Gurley, they didn't mind moving on. Ernest, like, they've done it with a lot of different kinds of players. And Joe Noteboom, the big contract, they weren't afraid to go to Alaric Jackson, AJ Jackson at left tackle, even though he was the cheaper guy who was undrafted. And so this team, based on what they've shown in the past and how good McClendon's playing right now, I really don't think that he gives his job back up to Rob. I really don't. Grandizer says Los Angeles Rams 2025 remaining schedule 10-3 are the Rams record. So we're playing the 10-3 Seahawks and then the Detroit Lions, Detroit Lions, Seattle Seahawks, Atlanta Falcons, and Arizona Cardinals. Which, by the way, guys, the Falcons did lose another game today, so the Rams pick is getting even better. Obviously, I kind of wanted them to win because they were playing Seattle. We needed Seattle to lose games, but hey, it's a win-win. Seattle wins and gives us a better draft pick, or Seattle loses and they kind of are separated a little bit more from the Rams. But Falcons pick got even better for the Rams after today. Did y'all notice Dolak tried to peanut punch? I think I did see that. Yeah, it's definitely looking contagious on the roster because I've even seen cornerbacks trying to do it for the Rams. Kamal says grocery store, Dollar General, UPS. We get starting talent from anywhere. Les needs to check out his bank teller next. Yeah, seriously, the amount of talent we've been able to find, the way we've been able to trade, like change the drafting landscape as a whole, and not drafting off of 40 times in the combine. Like, this Rams team is really cool to watch, and there's a lot of cool players to watch out for and to root for on this team, like Kobe Turner being from the Richmond College and then transferring to Wake Forest. And as you mentioned, like Dollar General, that's Byron Young, UPS, Xavier Smith. Like, there's a lot of those kinds of stories that you can really get behind for sure. Grandizer says Rams house, Rams rookie watch. Also, is Jarquez Hunter, running back out of Auburn, the only Rams rookie that has not played this year? So, Rams, as far as the rookie watch, Ferguson is definitely the guy that's looking best for the Rams right now. I think that today we kind of saw him take a bit of a step back as far as like penalties go, but it does feel like that's kind of a future pick and his impact is coming. Josiah Stewart, though, I think he would be another guy to consider as like one of those top guys. He's played a lot of snaps for the Rams. While his stats haven't been great, he's impacted things, and he's kind of been a chess piece for this team. Jarquez Hunter, though, yeah, he hasn't played really at all. We haven't seen a single snap from him, and we barely saw Corum play last year, so I think the Rams are kind of easing him in. They don't necessarily need him right now. I mean, Chris Paul didn't end up playing at all for the Rams this year because they released him before the season started. He didn't even make the roster, so he didn't get any snaps. But Mumfield, yeah, he's been getting snaps. Ty Hamilton has gotten snaps. So I guess if you eliminate Chris Paul, who didn't make the roster, Jarquez Hunter is the only guy that hasn't made a single snap for the Rams. So yeah, definitely going to be something interesting to see. I think Rams fans were really clamoring for him to get in the game earlier on, but I think we're starting to get a little bit more used to this running attack, and thankful for the running attack that the Rams have even without Jarquez even being featured. I'm stoked for the draft. I'm stoked for the draft when it happens. Right now, I'm like in season mode, just enjoying the season while we have it. But yeah, we definitely got some ammunition to use for sure. This is the year we stack up the DBs and linebackers. I definitely don't know the draft class well. All I know is that the quarterback class is not as strong as what people were thinking coming into it. But yeah, again, Rams have a lot of good ammunition to be able to use. So that's it. That's gonna do it for me. I do want to check out this Sunday night football game here. Hoping for a Chiefs loss. Just selfishly, I just kind of want to see that happen. So that's gonna do it for me. But thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for the super chat from Ducendo.